on, girl, let's scream.
I am a god.
No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel. This is the part where you run.
Come on, scream.
Hello, and welcome to Let's Scream, a podcast where we dive into our favorite horror movies. I'm Parker.
And I'm Stevie.
And today we're looking at 2022's Bodies, 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 directed by Helena Rain.
Join us as we journey to the hurricane party and learn all about how to manage a podcast, because it's really hard.
It's really hard. Are you ready to scream, girl?
Come on, girl. Let's
scream. Okay, so Bodies, Bodies, Bodies from 2022. How do we feel?
I like this one.
I do too.
I do have like a few like little
things,
but nothing like major. I think
for the most part you like it.
For the most part, I really like this movie.
Good.
I think
think this is fucking funny.
It's so funny. I think the jokes are amazing. I like the whole setup. I watched it with Keaton. Keaton had never seen it, and Keaton was like, "I like how the whole movie turns into a game of bodies, bodies, bodies."
Oh yeah,
which I'm like, yeah,
it's a game they're playing.
Yeah, it's funny,
and it was marketed as like a horror movie, like a slasher. Girl,
it's not.
It's so not even, like, I don't know how it was, like, even able to be marketed that way, because it is not a horror movie. Like, it's a dark comedy.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
There's no
It's
horror.
more like a whodunit.
Whodunit. Yeah, that's a really good way to
And that's what I love about it. It's like, it does get a little graphic with the gore, but I don't, like...
Not really.
They say on a lot of the gore shots a little long that you can really see, and you're like, oh, yeah, this is makeup.
Yeah.
Which I don't like. I'm not shitting on this movie. I love this movie. I think it's a lot of fun. I always forget the actress's name. She plays Alex.
Alex? Who the fuck is Alex? You mean Alice?
Alice. Sorry, not Alice. Oh my god.
Rachel Sennott.
Rachel. Yes, I love her.
Every time I think about her, there's this tweet that's like, it's a picture of her and it's like, she looked like her name would be Fatima, but in a Caucasian way. And so I always want to call her Fatima. But she's so funny.
That's her middle name, funny enough.
She's so fucking funny.
Yes, I always think
the whole cast does such a good job.
I always think of what? It's LA.
Yeah, she's the girl from It's LA.
What? I'm addicted to drugs.
We all are. If you don't have an eating disorder, get one, bitch.
Come on, it's LA. What? It's LA. I'm addicted to drugs. We all are. If you don't have an eating disorder, get one, bitch.
Yeah, she's great.
She's so good.
And it has the lead girl, Sophie, is Amanda Steinberg, and she was Rue in the motherfucking Hunger Games, bitch.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah, she does a great job. Everyone does a great job. Thematically, it's a commentary on Gen Z.
Gen Z.
Particularly rich, entitled, like, influencer Gen Z.
Yes.
Like, all the worst parts about Gen Z. And we were born, we're technically Gen Z.
Yeah, well, Keaton told me there was something that was released that says science data, when they calculate who's Gen Z, they're going by, like, 1995 to, like, whenever. And I was like, well, I was born in 95, so...
You're on that cusp.
I'm on that cusp.
Yeah.
So there we go. I'm also born at the very end of 95. So I'm nearly 96.
96.
It just, like...
So I thought you were 96, because I'm 97. So I guess I am technically Gen
But, like,
Z.
I'm at the end of December.
Right.
I'm after Christmas.
So, like, I always felt, though, that I was kind of in that cusp.
Yeah,
basically.
I mean, because me, it's like, my siblings are older, so I have that millennial experience. But then a lot of my friends, and even my partner, are younger. And even though it's like just a couple years, it's like still like, oh no, there's a
difference for sure.
There's such a huge difference.
But like I said, this isn't a critique on just Gen Z in general.
No.
It's a critique on rich Gen Z.
Oh yeah, none of them are likable characters.
No, that's what's so great about it.
But not in like a 80s horror movie where you're like, wow, these characters are not written well. It's like, no, they're written in a way where they're purposely meant to be
they're
like
shitheads. Yeah,
terrible. Where you're
it's
like,
everything you
all kind of
hate
suck.
about our generation. It's the selfishness, the entitlement. It's also a critique on like internet culture and how that has kind of like rotted our brains.
Yeah.
So like I think of the TikToks where like a kid will be like doing a TikTok dance to commemorate their dead grandpa, and they're doing it like in front of their grandpa's open casket. I also think of like the kind of performative activism that a lot of people on TikTok do.
There's such a good line we'll get into.
Yeah. There's so many good lines.
I'm an ally.
Yeah, the I'm an ally part is so good. It's very there's that white girl on TikTok back in the like 2020 Black Lives Matter movement who literally thought she single-handedly ended racism because she wrote Black Lives Matter on her forehead and like lip-synced to that Macklemore song that was like, damn right I support it. And she literally thought that she was the one.
She ended racism.
She ended racism. So yeah, that's what we're critiquing here. It's great. It's really funny. Don't go into it expecting like an actual horror movie, because I will say, the first time I watched this, that's what I thought I was getting. And there was a little part of me that was slightly disappointed that it wasn't full-blown horror. But
when you go back and realize, oh, it's just a dark comedy.
And we talk about that, like our preconceived notions going into new movies a lot on this podcast. But with this one, it's very that. Like, every subsequent viewing that I've had of this movie, I've loved it more and more. And like on this most recent one to watch for the podcast, I was like, no, this movie is amazing.
Yes.
Like,
I don't like one of the characters. I think it's just the way they're written into the story that I'm like kind of like,
is it B?
It's B.
I don't like B either.
It's just I don't think the actress is bad.
No.
I think she does good with what she was given. I was like, I think all the other characters are really funny, like written funny, but she's not. And I guess she's supposed to be the one that's like on the outside of it, but I'm like, I feel like she should have been more relatable then.
Yeah, and she's does
not.
Something that we'll get to, but it makes me really not like her. And it's hard for her character to recover in my eyes.
Yeah.
And she's supposed to be the final girl. Like, she's literally supposed to be the character we root for.
And I don't think she's that rootable.
No.
Like, I don't root for her that much. I'm just kind of like, oh.
Yeah.
And there's also one character I will say on this rewatch, I forgot she was in this movie.
Oh, who?
Emma.
Oh, yeah. She's like,
I was kind of like, oh, yeah, you're here.
But it's a large ensemble.
But it's a large ensemble cast, and there's some hard people to stand against, I think, in the film.
Yes.
So, and some really well-written characters that some of the characters just kind of fall flat. But overall, I think this is a fun watch. This is a good time with anyone. Great sleepover movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also really love the soundtrack, and we'll get into that.
Yes!
I think this film has a fantastic...
This is such a good
I was
soundtrack.
like, this is literally my music. I was like, they
Yeah.
literally just took my fucking playlist.
It's your Spotify on repeat playlist. It's a hyperpop listener's wet dream. This
I'm like,
soundtrack.
oh god, this is me. Like, I loved every song. And Kate was like, you listen to all this music.
Yeah.
I know.
I will say another part about this movie that does kind of make me think, I'm like, am I like some of these people? Like, it kind of makes you, like, since
Well,
we
some
are
of the things are a little
Gen
relatable.
Z.
You're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I do that shit.
Yeah, it
But
kind of
then
makes
I'm
you, like, question yourself. You're like, oh, am I obnoxious?
Yes.
Yeah. And the answer is yes.
But I think everyone's kind of obnoxious, because I think people older than us are very obnoxious.
True.
And very entitled.
True. I guess it's not just Gen Z. All right, so at this point, going forward, we're going to be getting into spoilers for Bodies. And if you've never seen it, there's a big twist, so do not spoil it if you don't want to. And then come back and get into the plot with us. So, without further ado, are you ready to scream, girl?
Come on, girl.
Let's
scream.
Okay, so we open on a full-blown lesbian make-out session. This is Sophie and B, who are very much in the honeymoon phase of their relationship. They've been dating for a few weeks, apparently, which in lesbian time...
They're gonna get engaged.
They're getting married tomorrow. No, literally.
This is their
lesbians
this is
move
like
at the
their
speed of
bachelorette
light.
party. That's how I thought of this whole movie.
They're like, I love you. No, I love you. Oh, you're perfect. No, you're perfect. Whereas if it was two gay guys, they wouldn't even know each other's last names at this point.
Oh no. Oh my god, have you ever been hung up over a guy whose last name you didn't know?
Every time, girl. And well, that kind of gets referenced in this movie too. The like last names.
I had to make sure like so many times to ask you. I was like, "What's your middle name and your last name?" I was like, "I just didn't know."
So then we cut to "Daddy as Fuck" by Slayer.
I know. I was like, "Oh, this soundtrack slaps."
Such a good song. One of my favorite like hyperpop songs.
Oh, I will also say, when the preview music, so it might have been the trailer music, is "Good Puss" by Cobra.
Another great one.
Because when I was like going to click, you know how like sometimes like Paramount will play like a little preview.
Oh yeah.
It like was doing that, and so I was like, oh, I was
A
like,
real
I
good
don't know
puss.
how much this.
A real good puss.
So this, I was like, oh, two great songs for me.
Yeah,
on my
no,
watch list.
just great. Yeah, and you know me, I'm not like the biggest hyperpop person.
Yeah, but there's a few that
These
like,
are just objectively great hyperpop songs.
yeah, that's how you feel about like you don't care for Charlie, but you do love Vroom Vroom.
Exactly.
Because you're like, it's just.
Mm-hmm. And there's some Charlie XCX in this movie.
Yes.
So yeah, the soundtrack's banging. They're driving to Sophie's friend David's house for a little party. And B keeps getting texts from her mom, and we could tell that she's nervous to leave her mom alone to go to this party. She has like a very close relationship with her mom, and Sophie assures her everything's going to be fine. Like, oh, they're going to love you. And she's basically meeting Sophie's friend group for the first time.
Which can be intimidating. We've been there.
Yes, we've all been there. And especially when the friend group are these people. So we get to David's house.
Who you could not be more different from.
And
the house is huge.
It's a mansion. It's a McMansion.
Yeah. And
everyone's in the pool. They're all holding their breath. Like they're doing like a hold your breath underwater contest. And they all start to notice Sophie like show up. And they all start to like come up out of the water and introduce themselves. The last one to come up from the pool is Greg, who's played by Lee Pace, and who's, first of all, daddy as fuck. Like, talk about daddy as fuck. I think this man is gorgeous.
Oh, absolutely. He's so cute.
Yeah.
He is so cute.
And immediately...
So, good taste.
I love him because he goes, was I the last one? I told you guys I have really big lungs. And we meet Alice, who's the one played by Rachel Sennott. She's the one I would vibe with the most. She's also the dumbest bitch at the party.
Oh, yeah.
So I really would vibe with her. And she's talking to Sophie, and she's like, oh my god, like, I haven't seen you since you were just, like, coked out on the subway. Like, oh my god. And so we're learning that Sophie is now sober.
Yep.
After she was going too hard in the past. She was getting too wild. She clearly has, like, substance abuse issues. And we also learned that Alice has a podcast.
Yes, I love this moment.
And she does this thing, which we've kind of done too at like parties, where people will be like, oh, I listen to your podcast.
OMG.
Fan of the pod. Fan of the pod.
Fan of the pod.
Yeah, she's so good. And we also meet Jordan, who is also lesbian, and she is very tense with Sophie. Like, right off the bat. She's like, oh, nice of you to show up. Like, we weren't even sure if you were going to come. Like, you never even said anything in the group chat. Like, kind of vibes, right? Yeah. And Sophie's like, oh, but I did text. But she clearly did not text. Like, she's surprising everyone. No one knew she was going to be here. And I love this because already, like, Alice is amazing. Because she pops up behind them and she's like, why are you guys whispering? Like, are you talking shit about me? They're like, girl, no, like, not you. Then Greg, who we learn is Alice's boyfriend, like they've been dating for a few weeks, I guess. He comes out with David's parents. Well,
they had like a sword like on the wall. It was like a decorative sword.
Saber or something. And he uses it to pop the champagne, which pisses off David. David is played by Pete Davidson. We also learned that they have a friend named Max, who was here earlier for the party, like the previous day. Because I guess they've all been hanging out for like the whole weekend.
Yes.
But he left for some reason. But he should be back later. And that's kind of all we get. So if you're like me and you're going into this being like, oh, this is a murder mystery, you're like, I'm going to keep that name in mind.
Yeah.
Max. I wonder who that is and where he will come into play. So they all do a cheers to a hurricane party because that's why they're here, we learn. There's going to be this big hurricane, so they decided to just like have this big indoor party and just hang out and bunker down. Yeah. And immediately as they do this cheers, it starts to storm and it starts to rain, so they have to take the party inside. And Jordan corners B alone and is like, hey, I just want to tell you, like, just be careful with Sophie.
And just keep in mind that this confrontation is at the very top of these, like, big spiral stairs.
Yeah.
The house is, like, there's, like, a few main rooms. You kind of get the big spiral staircase is one. There's also the living room.
Living room is a big part of it, yeah.
It's a big part of it. And then we'll get into, like, other spaces later, but...
So you can tell, like, okay, Jordan and Sophie used to date.
Yes.
And Jordan's clearly harboring, like, resentment from that. There's still, like, bad blood between them. She's kind of projecting onto B, I would say. David and Sophie are having a chat in his parents' office. I'm sorry, I have to laugh because I noticed. I literally wrote, Pete Davidson looks like Gollum.
But women love him.
How does he pull so many
Big
gorgeous women?
He's a big dick.
That's just a rumor, apparently. I remember, like, he's been like, no, my dick's not that big. That's just something people say to, like, try and justify why I'm pulling all these hot chicks.
He's got to be good at using it.
I guess.
That has to be it. Or he eats women out.
He
might eat pussy.
I would, in order to do it with him, I would have to put a paper bag over his head. So who all has he dated? Like, Kim Kardashian, right? Didn't he date Ariana Grande for a second, too? Like, Jesus.
She has a song named after him.
Does she really?
Yeah.
Oh my god. That's insane.
And she said he had a big dick.
Yeah, that's in that interview that I listened to. I was on TikTok or something. Like, it came up. And he was like, no, she said that. But, like, now everyone who gets with me is disappointed because it's really not that big. So maybe she said that as, like, to get back at him, I guess. I don't know.
They were still together, so I think she was trying to flex. Like,
Oh.
look at me.
Anywho, we learned that Max punched David earlier. And that's why David has a black eye. Because the whole time you're like, why does he have a black eye? Well, actually, Pete Davidson's eyes are kind of sunken in and, like, all gremlin-y anyway.
So I thought that was just his eyes.
I thought it was
I'm gonna
his
be
eye,
real.
too.
Can I be real? I think I missed that part of him having a black eye because I didn't know.
He looks like he
And
always
I think I missed the explanation.
has black eyes.
Holy shit! I wasn't paying attention. I'm so sorry. I did watch the movie today. I promise you all. I did watch it. Keen can confirm.
And Sophie asks if he's had a chance to talk to her parents lately. And he's like, Sophie, with all due respect, like, what the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah.
Like, you showed up for no reason. What's going on? So we can tell Sophie has, like, ulterior motives for coming to this party.
Yeah.
We don't know what they are yet, though. Downstairs, B is watching the others as they make TikToks and are just being Gen Z. And she decides to kind of warm up to them a little bit and even lets Alice make her a margarita. Alice is like, oh, okay, bitch. Oh, let's get her drunk.
She's so good.
And they're kind of picking B's brain. And we learn that her and Sophie have only been together for 6 weeks, which apparently is really long for Sophie. And they're all just kind of basically, like, hinting that Sophie is a hot mess, pretty much. And then they also go, oh, you know, that has weed in it, right? 'Cause she's been sitting here eating this cake, like this huge-ass piece of cake. And apparently it's an edible. And so, like, this poor girl is about to get high as fuck. And she seems very innocent vibes to me. Like
this is... Well, she's with Sophie, so she probably doesn't smoke or get high.
Right, yeah, because Sophie's sober right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is maybe her first party, honestly. And also, they hint that this is her first relationship, too, with Sophie. Like, this is probably her first ever relationship, ever. So.
Yeah.
Then they play 212 by Azealia Banks. Iconic.
Yes. Oh my god. Like I said, they took my like playlist.
Yeah. It's such a good song. Regardless how you feel about Azealia Banks,
She makes it.
her music is fucking amazing. And they're dancing and they're partying. And David is so coked out that he's like making out with his girlfriend Emma, who's just there. Like we talked about in the intro. She's the one who like is just kind of like there. She doesn't have much of a personality. But he starts biting her while they're kissing like really hard. And she's like, what the fuck?
She's like, please stop. And
Yeah.
then they go back to kissing, and then he does it again.
Does it again. This whole time, and it gets worse, you can tell he's, like, low-key abusive to her. Like, he's always, like, shitting on her. Mm-hmm. And, like, also, like, kind of hitting her and, like, being aggressive with her.
Absolutely.
Then he takes Alice into the kitchen, and they're just doing lines of coke. Like, bump after bump after bump of coke. And Jordan keeps dancing up on B, which makes Sophie jealous. And so she's like, to distract, oh, let's play a game of bodies. Which is basically like, I've called it Mafia whenever I've played
That's
it before.
another name for it. But basically, y'all draw like a card or whatever, and one of them is marked, and if you get the marked one, you're the killer. And you just have to sneak around and kill people, and then when if somebody finds the body, it's basically Among Us.
It's Among Us, yes, exactly.
It's literally Among Us.
And so you're like trying to accuse.
Oh, I found the body. So then you report it.
It was you who was the killer. Oh no.
And then everyone votes on who it is.
So Emma starts complaining already. Oh, this game always starts drama, you guys. But they decide to play anyway, because they're all messy, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And they even do this thing where it's like tradition, I guess, for them to take a shot, like go around, take a shot,
and like
then you slap the person to your right.
And like B is very like this was weird.
Oh,
B
yeah.
was so hesitant to like punch to like slap David.
Yeah, she's like, I literally just met you and now I have to slap you. Like what?
And
the
so
fuck?
like she gives him like a good slap, and then he gets like after like her third one, he's like, no, like this, and he turns and he punches.
Literally punches Greg.
Like it's not even a slap.
It's a straight up punch. And I love this because, okay, so Greg, we can tell he's older than these kids.
Yes.
Like he's clearly, I would say late 30s, early 40s.
Yes.
Exactly, yeah. And he's way more emotionally mature because he just kind of like collects himself. He's like, okay. He like takes a breath
out of the room.
and he goes and he like steps out of the room. Like he knows how to de-escalate a situation.
Yeah.
None of these kids, none of these Gen Zers know how to de-escalate a
and
situation.
that comes back to bite them in the ass.
It does. It surely does. So anyway, he comes back. He's calm. He's cool. They proceed with the game and they turn off all the lights and they hide. I love how Alice's dumbass still has all of her glow sticks on because this whole movie, she's wearing like maybe 10 different glow stick necklaces at once, and she's trying to hide because like it's like hide and go seek, like they're in the dark. And she's like still has her glow sticks on, so everyone can see her.
Yes.
And she's like, "Oh my god, you! How did you see me?"
It's so good.
She's so funny. And so someone shouts, "Bodies, bodies, bodies!" and it's revealed that Greg has been killed in the game. And so they're like kind of congregating around him, starting to be like, "Okay, who is the killer?" Da da da. But then they realize Greg has just been laying there still. And wait. Is he breathing?
And they're like freaking out.
And they get up close to him. Jump scare! He like kind of goes like that.
Well, Pete Davidson.
Oh yeah.
He takes the beer bottle and just puts it right into his like crotch, and like so the cold
kind of like teabags him, and so he like kind of like jolts up, and apparently he was just using his huge lungs that he was bragging about
to hold his breath
to just kind of fuck with him. Yeah. So, but that was like the first time watching this movie, I was like, oh. This is it. Like, this is the murder mystery. He's dead. Like, But it's just a fake out. And they discuss who the killer is in the game. And they all immediately think it's David because he's the most aggro one. And he starts getting really defensive. And he also gets really annoyed because Greg keeps saying, like, well, yeah, the best defense is the best offense. And he's like, well, what does that mean? Like, explain that, Greg. And he's like, the best defense is the best offense. Well, what does that mean? And, like, they just keep getting, like, shitty with each other. And they, like, it gets kind of aggressive. And they kind of start to, like, square up. Like, they're going to fist fight. And then Greg is like, you know what? I'm too old for this shit. I'm going to bed. Because, again, he's, like, the only emotionally mature one. So he, like, literally separates himself from the situation. And he goes upstairs. And so they continue to discuss who the killer could be. And David starts acting super, like, antagonistic towards Emma. And they get into this big argument. And he, like, smashes a vase.
Yeah.
Like, just all this pent-up anger. Like, clearly this dude has some issues. And it's really awkward. And he just, like, storms out. And they're like, okay, well, let's just do another round of the game. Now that, like, 2 people have left. And they do the, let's all take a shot. Let's all smack each other again. Yeah. But then the power goes off. Uh-oh. B goes off to use the bathroom. And jump scare, she sees David outside the window.
Basically, like, banging
on the window. There is blood all over him. And they all run out to find his neck has been slashed. And he dies, like, in Sophie's arms. And she's, like, freaking out because that was, like, her best friend from childhood.
Yeah.
And then they, like, run to the car. But, B accidentally left the light on.
So the battery is dead.
And they're stranded. So they all go back inside. And Jordan went to go check on, like, the power. And so she shows up separately, knocking on the door, looking all sus. And she's holding the bloody sword that she found out by David's body. So this was the sword that Greg had used to, like, pop the champagne earlier.
The champagne bottle.
And so they're like, okay, this is clearly the murder weapon. And they are all freaking out. And they're trying to discuss who could have killed David. And they suggest, okay, is it Max, who's the guy that left earlier that we haven't met yet at all? And we know that they had just gotten into a big fight. And then they're like, well, maybe it's Greg. And this is one of my favorite scenes. Alice, who is dating Greg, insists that it can't be Greg. They're like, how long have you known him, Alice? How long have you known him? And she's like, long. Maybe, I don't know, 2 weeks? But, like, he's a good person, you guys. Like, he's a Libra moon. That says a lot. And she also doesn't know his middle name.
No.
Like, okay, what's his middle name? She's like, well, that's not something you discuss for, like, a while. And she starts, like, yelling and making a fuss. And they're, like, shushing her and, like, covering her mouth. And she goes, You're silencing me. You're silencing me. They're like, Alice, shut
up.
And they also realize that Emma is missing. So they go upstairs to find her. And they're like,
this is funny, too.
Emma? She's an actress, after all. Because, like, that, I guess that's her thing. Like, and she was in, like, some independent movie that they all saw at, like, a film festival, like, at one point. That's, like, her only project she's ever done. And one of them goes, okay, guys, let's not act like she's that good. Like, we all saw her in that movie. Like, she was fine, okay? I don't think she's, like, that much of a fucking Meryl Streep. And then they go into Greg's room. They don't see him. They don't know where he's at. But they do find his bag. And he has a map that has the house circled. What could this mean? Which, like, in retrospect, he's from a different generation that didn't have Google Maps.
Yeah.
So he was literally just marking the house on the map.
Yeah.
Because there's gonna be a hurricane. These dumb motherfuckers. They're literally like, oh my god, like,
That's
so
why this
good.
is so good. It's like everything about it is so logical.
And they go into the room where Jordan is staying, and B finds this orange bra laying out and like picks it up. And Jordan's like, well, we're not here to like look at my underwear.
I think she says, I don't think he's hiding anything in my bra.
Yeah, something
Like that.
But basically, it's just to kind of point out that she wears orange underwear.
Yeah.
And it will just come up.
Wait, I thought it was yellow.
No, it's orange. Maybe it's like a tangerine or...
It was a yellow. It was pretty yellow.
Well, we'll let Google determine that after this podcast, TV. And next episode, we will see
I could just look it up.
who was right. No.
Okay.
Next episode.
Wow.
Okay, fine. You know what? Fuck you. I'm looking it up right now. Okay. According to Google, it's yellow. You win this time, Stevie.
Thank you, Google. Thank you, Google.
So yeah, but basically that just sets up this yellow matching like bra and panty set. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Now they find Emma in her room, lying, like she's trying to go to sleep, and they wake her up. And then they find some Xanax.
Oh yeah.
And Alice is like, oh, do you want some Xanax? And I was like, yeah. She's like, yeah, let's have some Xanax.
Yeah. That'll make us feel like so much better, yeah. And they all decide to like team up and go find Greg. So they find him in the racquetball court. This like indoor racquetball court. And he's laying on the like middle
They
of the
see him with an
racquetball
LED
court.
mask on, and they're like, what is that? Why is he wearing that creepy mask? And Alice is like, guys,
It's his sleep therapy
it
mask.
helps. He has
Seasonal depression.
He has seasonal depression.
You guys. And they go in, they wake Greg up, and they like confront him. And he also had his AirPods in. So he hasn't been able to hear any of the commotion downstairs at all, apparently. And he thinks that they're still playing the game. And he's like, are you guys still playing werewolf? Because, like, that's another name for bodies, I guess. And he starts running around like a werewolf. And he doesn't realize, like, that they're freaked out.
Oh.
So they, like, are literally screaming. And he's just trying to, like, fuck with them. But, like, it scares the shit out of them. And they start, like, ganging up on him with knives. Like, he realizes they're all literally armed with actual knives.
Yeah.
And so he's like, oh shit, like, what the fuck? And he disarms Emma. And he's just trying to de-escalate the situation. But then...
B bonks him on the head with a kettlebell.
The fucking kettlebell.
And you know what?
And kills him.
My mom got a back injury from using a kettlebell incorrectly.
Oh.
She pulled a muscle and just like hurt her back. And so she
yeah.
forever swore off kettlebells. And I was like, wow, she was right.
Yeah, but you do have to make sure. Yeah, kettlebells are no joke. Yeah. That could fuck you up for sure. But yeah, poor Greg. He literally, and like, knowing what we know in retrospect, he did nothing wrong.
No.
That's the thing. And, like, B is the one that killed him. And it's very clear that this guy is innocent.
Yeah.
So you're kind of... This is what I was talking about in the intro.
It's like you just... If it was any other character, it would have made more sense. B doesn't make sense.
It's like...
For the whole...
Now I don't like her.
Yeah.
Like, she's supposed to be, like, the one you root for.
Yeah.
But she, like, kind of just killed this guy for no reason. And he was, like, one of my favorite characters.
And he was... But I think also, like, I get why he was one of the first to go, because he was the most logical, so he had to go, because...
Well, that's... Okay, so that's what Jordan says. She's, like, trying to justify it. She's like, well, I mean, statistically, like, it would make the most sense, because, like, he served in the military, right? Like, you said he was a vet. And Alice goes, yeah, a vet. A veterinarian's assistant.
And they're like, why did you call him G.I. Joe?
Have you seen him?
It's so
Oh,
good.
poor Greg. Poor Greg. I feel so bad for this guy. And B immediately gets really guilty because it's kind of all starts to, like, hit her, like, oh, I just killed an innocent man. She, like, pukes all over herself.
Yeah.
And Sophie decides, she's so stressed out at this point, so she's like, I'm ending my sobriety. And she goes into the other room and she, like, starts doing coke.
Yeah.
To calm her down, basically. And she goes in and she starts getting really bitchy with Emma. And they're like, Sophie, did you use... Like, they can... I think the old Sophie's starting to come out.
Yeah.
Because she's getting aggressive. And Emma's like, you're just toxic. And she storms away. And Sophie knows exactly where David's coke stash is. She goes up into his bedroom and she finds, like, a game board where he's hidden coke in. Because, like, you know, they were friends for a long time.
Yeah.
So, like,
she would know.
She does a fuck ton of coke. She does, like, 50 bumps or something. And then she goes and she encounters Emma upstairs, who, like, approaches her. And, like, she's trying to apologize to Emma. And Emma, they've talked about how Emma always likes to make things, like, about her. She's, like, that kind of friend.
Yeah.
And so she's like, let's just make out. And she starts trying to make out with Sophie. And she's like, isn't this what you wanted? And Sophie's like, no, Emma. It's not always about how hot you are. Like, I don't want to make out with you. And she's like, whatever. Here, just take the rest of these drugs and, like, get out of my face, basically.
Yeah.
So Emma takes the rest of the coke and she, like, storms away.
And then Alice is wandering around the house and she hears a scream and, like, a crash.
Mm-hmm.
And she, trips and falls onto Emma's dead body.
Emma! And they can't tell. Like, she clearly, like, fell down the stairs because there's, like,
so now
blood
it's, did
down the
she
stairs.
trip or was she pushed?
Yep. And B literally comes down the stairs right behind her, looking really sus. And so they all start ganging up on B. And Jordan reveals that she Googled B.
And she never went to Utah State.
Yep.
There's no one there with her name, which
and like
you
she said that she worked at
by Googling, but okay.
she
Go
said
off,
that
sis.
she said that she worked at a game, like a Dave and Buster's or something.
Yeah.
And she said she called the Dave and Buster's and that B doesn't work there.
Yeah.
Apparently. So like B's looking really sus. And they all like literally throw her out into the rain. It's really fucked up. And they like lock her out. She's
Of
like
every single door.
every
Because there's a
door.
lot of fucking doors on
There
this house.
is, yeah. She's going around. They keep locking her out.
It's one of those sunrooms where every window is a door.
Yeah,
It's
pretty
huge.
much. And so she goes out and she takes shelter in the car. And while she's looking for a change of clothes, she finds the yellow panties that would match.
What color were they, Parker?
They're yellow.
Wait, I'm sorry. I couldn't hear you over here.
They're tangerine. Okay.
No, they were yellow.
They're like an apricot.
They're yellow.
And she
So yellow.
but they would be matching to the bra that we saw in Jordan's room. So she's kind of putting two and two together. Uh-oh. And B goes and she is looking through a window trying to get in. She sees Jordan in a room retrieving a gun from a drawer in like the study. Yeah. And we as had established earlier, there wasn't a gun in the house. Like I remember someone asked somebody like, "Oh, is there a gun?" No, they don't have guns in this house. But Jordan knew where to find a gun. A little sus. And so B finds this like doggy door and is able to get back into the house. And she arms herself with a hammer. And she goes into the living room where the others are waiting, and she tells them that she saw Jordan get a gun. And she's like, empty your pockets, Jordan. Like, if you have nothing to hide, empty your pockets. And so Jordan empties her pockets. She doesn't have a gun. She did, though, have the slip of paper that identified her as the killer from the game.
Yes. And so Alice, because Alice earlier was like, that's how they kind of got B out. They were like, oh my god, B's the killer of the game. So, because Alice is so dumb, she's like, oh my god, it's going in the order of the game. Everything that happened in the game is the same thing. And they're like, no,
It's actually not going in the order of the game.
like,
She's like, well,
Greg was killed and we banished
though.
David. And we didn't do anything with Emma. And she's like, but still, it's the game.
It's the game, though. Like, you guys. So she immediately, she sees the piece of paper that Jordan
She's like, oh my god,
She's
Jordan.
like, you're the killer. And she's like, in the game, Alice. And they ask B why she lied about her school and the job. And she reveals that she had to drop out. Like, she did go to Utah State at one point. She just didn't graduate. She wasn't on the graduation list because she had to take care of her mom, who she reveals has borderline personality disorder. Like, a really extreme case of it, apparently.
Yeah.
So that's why we know she's so close with her mom and, like, scared to, like, be away from her mom on this trip. It's because she literally is, like, her mom's nurse, pretty much. And also, she had to quit her job from the Dave & Buster's or whatever it was, like, the game store, to take care of her mom, too. So she kind of half-lied. To Sophie. And Alice, so after she reveals that her mom has BPD, Alice goes, "Oh my God, I am so sorry. Like, mental health awareness is really important. And the truth is, and I've never actually told anyone this, but I have body dysmorphia." And I'm like, Alice!
Alice, shut the fuck up.
We don't need to hear about your body dysmorphia right now. And, yeah, B is, like, saying that she basically made all this up because she just wanted Sophie to like her. And Sophie and B, they make up and they, like, kiss. And Jordan, jealous Jordan, gets pissed. And she goes into her backpack that was sitting, like, over on the couch. And she gets out the gun. So we realize that's where she stored the gun. And she starts aiming at them. And, like, she is just still convinced that B is the killer. And then they all start turning the tables around on Sophie. And it's revealed that Sophie has been cut off by her parents after having to go to rehab. And that's why she was here. Because David apparently is close with Sophie's parents. And she was trying to get him to talk to her parents and get them to, like, reinstate her trust fund. And they're like, "Oh, well, you might be the killer because you're back on drugs now, basically. So, like, what's your motive? Why are you here?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "Well, it's fucked up that all of a sudden when the black girl does drugs, it's a big deal, even though everyone else at this party has literally been coked the fuck up." And this is such a great
Especially
moment.
when your best friends are a male and a white girl.
Alice goes, yeah, I totally understand, you know, because I'm an ally, and I can totally see how it looks that way. Alice is so good. Like,
She's so
honestly, so good. Like, if this character was not in the movie, it wouldn't work. Like,
Yeah.
all this Gen Z commentary wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But she's the button. And Rachel Sennott is just, chef's
She's so
kiss.
good.
She's brilliant.
She knows how to, like, she's so good at comedy.
She is. She's great. And Sophie says, "Well, I don't want to be friends with y'all anymore because you guys enable me." And Jordan says, "Oh yeah, we enable you? Well, did you tell B that you and I fucked the other day?" Uh-oh. So tensions are super high.
Yeah.
And all hell breaks loose when Sophie, she, like, kind of turns it back on Jordan. And she's like, "Oh yeah, Jordan? Well, how about you tell Alice how much you secretly hate her podcast?" And Alice is like, "Wait, what?"
Alice is so... She's like,
It
you hate
becomes-
listen.
this
You
is
hate listen to it.
You hate listen to it. That's what you do. You hate listen to it. And it becomes World War III. And this is so good because I swear to God, like, I do really feel for Alice in this moment as, like, a podcast host. You guys, a podcast takes a lot of work, okay? Like, you have to manage a Google Calendar, and you have to do this and that, and
Do we
you
need
have
a
to
Google
guess.
Calendar? I was watching this, I was like, shit, do we need a Google Calendar?
I think we probably need to get a Google Calendar. And then she's like, "And you know what, Jordan? Like, no one even likes you because you're just obsessed with your whole rags to riches narrative. And, like, you're not the only person who's ever not come from money. And let's face it, Jordan, your parents are upper middle class." And it's like,
No, they're not.
They are. They both teach at a university.
It's public.
Oh my god. And she's like, wow. And they get into this huge, like, it becomes a fist fight. And I love this because the whole time Alice is like, you're such a bitch. You're such a bitch. And
She shoots
Alice in
the
leg.
leg.
Did you just fucking shoot me? And she goes,
No.
You just did. Like, I saw you. And, like, it really hurt. And she's like, Alice, I didn't shoot you,
Yeah,
okay?
because there's also a line where she's like, I've never been shot in the leg before, and
Yeah,
it really
it, like,
hurts.
And then they get into this wild tussle. This is actually a really tense scene, I thought. Like, I was like...
Oh, because they all start fighting for the gun.
clenching my
All
purse.
4 girls start fighting for the gun.
Yeah, they both reach
Because, like,
for the gun.
Sophie jumps into it, and then B tries...
Mm-hmm.
And then...
We hear a bang.
And it looks like Alice got shot in the neck.
Diva
down.
Not Alice. She had a podcast. She worked so hard. And Jordan has the gun. And Sophie, like, backs her up, like, trying to calm her down and be like, give me the gun.
Yeah, and Jordan's like, get away from me.
Then just get away from me. And they, like, back all the way up the stairs. And then B, like, comes out of nowhere and runs at her. And they have this crazy showdown. And B is able to fling Jordan off the balcony, where she lands onto the glass table. And her dying words...
Check her text.
Check her text.
And then she shoots at them a few times, but she doesn't
Yeah,
get
she
them.
dies. And so B and Sophie decide to hunker down inside a closet. But B suddenly gets really suspicious of Sophie again because Sophie refuses to admit that she cheated on her with
Which
Jordan.
we all know she did. Like, the
all
evidence is there.
know.
Why would Jordan lie about it? Because we also know Alice and Jordan are innocent in this whole charade, most likely. because
Exactly.
This whole thing is like... I don't... Keaton was figuring out what was started to figure out what was going on.
Yeah, the twist.
Yeah.
We'll get there here in just a second. So, no longer trusting of Sophie, B runs away from her, and she hides for the rest of the night until the sun begins to rise. And she makes her way outside, and she walks past all the corpses that are lying around of all the fucking Gen Zers. And she goes out by the pool, which is, like, now all nasty from the storm. It has, like, all the gross water in it. And she gets jump scared by Sophie, who, like, comes behind her. And, like, oh my god, is she gonna choke her? No, she just kind of, like, embraces her. And is like, oh my god, like, I couldn't find you, and I just want to be with you. And is, like, being all, like, apologetic, right? And she, again, still won't admit to have cheating on her. So, B, we realize, has found the gun. Like, she found, when she stumbled upon Jordan's body, she took the gun. So she points the gun at Sophie and is like, give me your phone.
I want to see the text to Jordan.
I want to see your text. Like, did you fuck Jordan? Sophie throws the phone, and they get into this, and so the gun just gets tossed to the side. Like, they don't give a fuck about the gun anymore. And they're fighting over the phone. They end up, like, rolling into the nasty pool at one point, and they're still fighting. And B grabs a phone off the ground once they get out of the pool. But they realize, oh, that's not my phone. They realize it's David's phone, Pete Davidson's phone.
So they go and use his corpse to use the face ID.
Face
ID.
To, like, unlock it.
Okay, and I see he was working on a TikTok.
And this is when we get the twist.
The twist of this whole fucking movie.
So Pete Davidson was making his little TikTok, and he was trying to do the move that Greg had done earlier, where you pop the
seamlessly
champagne.
popped it, and we saw that. Obviously, because anyone who knows when you work with a knife or a sword, you always swipe away
from your face. He was swiping towards himself like a dumbass.
Trying to pop open the bottle, and he slit his
own neck.
throat.
So, this whole time, there hasn't been a killer. These dumb asses have literally, like, caused themselves to, like, go into a frenzy.
B's a murderer.
Yes.
2 people she killed.
Yes. And it all is for no reason, basically. That's such a good twist.
And
I remember
then
the first time I watched this, I was like, that is the
Max
perfect twist.
Finally shows up.
Yeah, Max, who they talked about this whole movie, we still never
And he's
met.
like, what the fuck happened? And all of a sudden, the pool like the fountains turn on, so we know the power's back on,
goes
and
back
we
on.
start hearing all of B's
Like her little notifications
and
coming up on
texts
her
and
phone.
messages from her mom, most likely.
Literally,
And
all
she
they can
says-
say to this guy is, "I have reception."
Reception.
Boom! The end. They play
Hot Girls
Hot
by
Girl
Charlie
by Charlie
XCX. And it's so good.
So good.
It's so good.
So yeah, it was all for no reason. They're all fucking dumb. Fuck Gen Z. The end. Basically.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's such a great movie. It's funny
Yeah.
as fuck.
I couldn't recommend it more. It's so funny. And Rachel Sennott is the breakout star for me.
Oh, yeah. She's amazing
She
in
is
this.
so funny. Fatima. My girl Fatima.
My girl Fatima.
She looks like her name might be Fatima, but in a Caucasian way. It's so stupid. Okay. Alright, so that's it for this week. Next week, I'm so excited. We're starting a new series. We're switching it up. Like, it's gonna be different. Like, we're kind of changing the format.
Yeah.
We've never done a non-horror movie. We're doing Show Tune Scream Timber, bitch. And we're gonna be doing movie musicals that are kind of like horror adjacent,
Ish.
pretty much.
Spooky.
Spooky musicals.
Spooky.
So I'm really excited. We're doing some of my like favorite movie musicals.
And some of your least favorites.
Some of my least favorite. Because I have to torture myself, of course. But because Keaton, fan favorite of the pod,
Fan
is
favorite
like
of the pod.
our resident musical theater fan. They will be
Yeah.
joining us for every episode this month. So look forward to that. I'm really excited. And we are going to start with one of my absolute favorites, Little Shop of Horrors. Little Shop of Horrors. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And thank you for joining us today on Let's Scream. We hope you had a fun time with us at the hurricane party at David's house. Please remember to follow the pod, like the pod, and leave a glowing review of the pod. It really helps us. We are at Let's Scream Pod on pretty much everything now. We have a Twitter, we have a TikTok, we have YouTube, we have Spotify,
And we have TikTok.
and Instagram. So, yes, follow us there. You can also follow me at Parker_Will_C on Instagram.
You can follow me at StevieNash95 on Instagram.
And until next time, this has been
Let's Scream.
Bye.
Bye.